Greetings, true believers. Mary here, the Merry Marvelite, and today we're going to be exploring some of the different Earths in the Marvel Multiverse. But first, this channel is brought to you in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to vote in monthly polls and get your name in the special thanks at the end of each episode, you can sign up for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below, along with other places you can find me. Normally on this channel, we talk about the history of the Marvel Universe, as well as its heroes and villains. But as you may well know, there's an entire multiverse out there of various parallel universes, timelines, and pocket dimensions. Today we're going to have a look at some of those alternate realities and see where they differ from the prime universe of Earth 616. This is not meant to be a complete or comprehensive list, since there would be far too many to list them all, but let me know in the comments below if you have any favorites that I didn't mention. First off, there are many realms and dimensions that, while not necessarily part of the physical universe, still fall under the category of Reality 616. There are several distinct afterlives, heavens, and hells, such as the one traditionally ruled by the superdemon Mephisto. There are different mystical realms like Ragador, Dizak, and Munapur. Perhaps the most noteworthy among them is the Dark Dimension, which is ruled by the dread Dormammu. There are other dimensional planetary bodies like Asgard, Olympus, and Weird World, as well as adjacent alien universes such as the Microverse and the Negative Zone, all of which still fall within the confines of Reality 616. There are also alternate Earths that have been created in the same universe as Earth 616. For example, the High Evolutionary once created a counter-Earth on the opposite side of the sun that mirrored Earth 616, but without superheroes or paranormal powers. That world soon became a battleground in a conflict between Adam Warlock and the villainous Man-Beast. The Reed Richards of this world would later be transformed into a savage brute. That world was apparently destroyed, but a second counter-Earth was created by Franklin Richards following the apparent deaths of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four in a battle against the psionic monster known as Onslaught. The heroes were reborn on Franklin's counter-Earth, but their memories were altered to fit this new reality. Eventually, the nature of that world was discovered, and the heroes returned to Earth 616 with their memories restored. One of the people created along with that counter-Earth was Ricky Barnes, that world's version of Bucky who later appeared on Earth 616. Another Earth, spelled EURTH, was created by the sentient cosmic cube known as the Shaper of Worlds. This Earth was one of high fantasy populated by medieval avatars of Earth's heroes and villains. Beyond Reality 616, there are also alternate timelines which have diverged from one another to become separate universes. These timelines typically share their histories up to a certain point in which things took a different path, resulting in an alternate future. One of these is Earth 691, which we previously talked about in detail. In this timeline, most of Earth's heroes were killed by Martian invaders during the War of the Worlds in the early 21st century. This reality was home to Killraven and his group of freedom fighters. It was also in this universe that Yondu Udanta, Vance Astro, Mutant X Tanaga, and Charlie 27 formed the original Guardians of the Galaxy in the 31st century. In another universe, Reality 7484, Earth's heroes were banished to lethal extra-dimensional realms by commandos under the purview of the Roxxon Oil Company. It was on this Earth that a deceased soldier named Luther Manning was resurrected as the cyborg Deathlok. On Earth 6297, humanity had built a peaceful utopia and abolished weapons by the 23rd century. This world was home to Zarko the Tomorrow Man, who traveled through time in an attempt to steal weapons and conquer his own Earth, but was thwarted by the thunder god Thor. On Earth 811, known as the Days of Future Past, the X-Men failed to prevent Mystique's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants from assassinating Senator Robert Kelly. As a result, a radical anti-mutant president was elected and the Mutant Affairs Control Act was passed. Mutant-hunting Sentinel robots were unleashed, but the Sentinels determined that the best way to ensure the elimination of mutant kind was to take control of the country themselves. Many mutants were killed, along with any human heroes who dared to stand up to the Sentinels. This is the timeline where Rachel Summers, the daughter of Cyclops and Jean Grey, originally came from. In another divergent timeline which split off from the Days of Future Past, Franklin Richards, the son of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman, survived and married Rachel Summers. They had a child named Jonathan Richards who grew up to be a world-conquering despot known as Hyperstorm. Yet another world where mutants were hunted by Sentinel robots was Reality 1191. Xavier and most of the X-Men were killed, and any surviving mutants were branded with an M over their right eye. This reality is noteworthy for being the home dimension of the X-Man Bishop and his nemesis Trevor Fitzroy. Fitzroy eventually traveled to another timeline, Earth 9910, where he ruled as the brutal Chronomancer until he was defeated by Bishop. For that reason, this apocalyptic future is referred to as Chronomancer's World. In Reality 4935, the mutant apocalypse ruled the world roughly 2,000 years in the future. On this Earth, Apocalypse was opposed by Clan Askani, a sisterhood formed by a time-displaced Rachel Summers from the Days of Future Past universe. This is also the future where Cable from Earth 616 was taken and raised as a child, so it is referred to as the Cable Askani world. As such, this is also the reality where Cable's evil clone, Strife, was created. In another reality, humanity evolved into a high-tech telepathic race, while Hercules fought as a star-spanning hero in the 24th century. On Earth 8410, the heroic age ended in the 80s, and the world was taken over by large corporations like Stark International and Banetronics. In this reality, Tony Stark's company was taken over by his relative, Arno Stark, who used his technology for mercenary pursuits as the Iron Man of the year 2020. This reality was also home to Nikki Doyle, Wild Thing, and the Second Death's Head. On Earth 8710, the world was taken over by an oppressive organization called the Corp. When Thor's hammer Mjolnir was discovered, a cult of those who believed it would lead them to salvation formed around it. Wishing to prevent his brother's return, Loki attacked the cult of the hammer. However, Mjolnir was lifted by a man named Dargo Kator, who used the power of Thor in his fight for freedom in the late 2500s. On Earth 9200, the world of future Imperfect, society was devastated by a global nuclear war. While most of Earth's heroes perished, the Hulk survived, but the radiation amplified the negative aspects of his personality, and he became known as the Maestro. While he was more intelligent than before, he also grew ruthless and immoral, and Maestro ruled over the survivors of humanity in the city of Dystopia. On Earth 928 in the year 2099, massive corporations like Alchemax and Stark Fujikawa lived above the law while controlling the private police force known as the Public Eye. However, a new heroic age began when a lab accident turned Alchemax employee Miguel O'Hara into the Spider-Man of 2099. Several others also followed in the footsteps of figures from the 20th century such as Jake Gallows, who became the new Punisher. Although many mutants lost their lives in a war against humanity around the start of the 21st century, a new team of X-Men formed as well. While there was also a version of Doctor Doom in 2099, he may have actually been the original as he believed himself to be. And this world also had its own versions of Ghost Rider, the Hulk, and more. Due to alterations in the time stream, reality warping, and the nature of the multiverse, there are also several other similar but different versions of 2099. One of these alternate timelines was a version of 2099 where events similar to those of future Imperfect occurred. And so there are multiple timelines where the Hulk became Maestro, such as Reality 10071. This Earth was home to the Next Avengers, the children of Earth's mightiest heroes. This included Henry Pym Jr., the son of Giant Man and the Wasp, Torun, the daughter of Thor and Sif, Francis Barton, the son of Mockingbird and Hawkeye, Azari T'Challa, the son of Storm and the Black Panther, and James Rogers, son of Black Widow and Captain America. Another world which diverged from Reality 616 was that of Earth 982, otherwise known as the MC2 universe. Years ago, Peter Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man, was married to his beloved Mary Jane, and the two were expecting a child. On Earth 616, MJ was poisoned by an agent working for Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, and their daughter May was stillborn. However, on Earth 982, May survived, and having inherited her father's powers, grew into the hero known as Spider-Girl. Mayday was far from the only next-generation hero in this timeline, and there was also J2, the son of the Juggernaut. He formed the next incarnation of the Avengers in that timeline, alongside Stinger, the daughter of Ant-Man, Thunderstrike, son of the original Thunderstrike, and Mainframe, a robot built by Iron Man. Many more heroes appeared in this timeline, such as Shannon Carter, aka American Dream, and Wild Thing, the daughter of Wolverine and Elektra. And of course some veteran heroes like Jubilee were still around as well. On the subject of universes where Peter Parker and Mary Jane have a daughter, another such world is the Renew Your Vows universe. Like Earth 616, Peter and MJ were married but lost their first daughter because of Norman Osborn. In the Prime Marvel Universe, their marriage was subsequently wiped from reality because of a deal with Mephisto. But in the world of Renew Your Vows, this never happened, and the two had a daughter named Annie Mae Parker. She also inherited her father's powers and became known as Spiderling. With MJ wearing a costume that allowed her to copy her husband's abilities, the three formed a crime-fighting spider family. Peter and MJ eventually met the Mayday Parker of Earth 982 and learned that in at least one universe their first daughter was still alive. Another reality which diverged during the Marvel Age of Heroes was Earth 161, the X-Men Forever universe. This is from the book X-Men Forever, in which Chris Claremont returned to continue his run that left off in 1991's X-Men number 3, but of course taking the story in a different direction. Like most divergent timelines, there are things which place this squarely in an alternate reality besides the most obvious point of divergence, such as Gambit's last name being Picard instead of LeBeau. Notably, in this timeline, the Mutant X gene is unstable, and all who have one eventually suffer from a fatal condition known as mutant burnout. In another reality, Earth 15061, Danielle Cage, the daughter of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, grew up to become Captain America. In that world, her arch-nemesis was a hedonistic villain known as the Golden Skull. This version of Danielle evidently traveled the multiverse and met other versions of herself who also took up the mantle of Captain America. A much less pleasant future is that of Earth 807128, the world of Old Man Logan. In this reality, the Earth's supervillains joined forces, killed most of the heroes, and overthrew the American government. Mysterio, the Master of Illusion, was even able to fool Wolverine's enhanced senses and tricked him into killing the other X-Men. Over the next 50 years, the United States became a wasteland and was divided into various territories belonging to the villains. Wolverine retired and started a family out west where he was forced to pay rent to the inbred family of a mentally unstable Hulk. Peter Parker also had a daughter in this reality, a woman named Tanya, who eventually married a much older Hawkeye. They in turn had a daughter named Ashley Barton, who grew into a brutal new Spider-Woman and aspired to become the next Kingpin. To me, the highlight of this universe is when Old Man Logan and Old Blind Hawkeye were driving a modified Spider-Mobile while being chased by a T-Rex from the Savage Land that had bonded to the Venom symbiote. Another dark future is that of Earth 9511, referred to as the Last Avengers story. On this world, the Avengers fell apart after the Scarlet Witch was accidentally killed during a fight between Quicksilver and the Vision. Quicksilver took his own life while the Vision cut himself off from humanity. Furthermore, her two sons, Tommy and Billy Maximoff, witnessed this. Tommy later studied sorcery under Doctor Strange, while an emotionally broken Billy became the new Grim Reaper. Of course, it should be noted that for most of these realities there's a lot more which could be said, so let me know in the comments if you'd like a deeper look at any of these like we already did with the Guardians of the Galaxy timeline. Another reality is that of Earth 715, in which men and women warred with one another for centuries. In their attempts to use radiation treatments to increase their strength, the men of this world inadvertently sterilized themselves. Genetic engineering and artificial insemination was used to propagate the species, eliminating the need for men and women to come together for reproduction. By the 23rd century, women had conquered society, and Earth 715 became known as Femizonia. This world was home to the warrior woman known as Thundra. However, we are talking about a multiverse, and while the Femizons controlled Earth 715, on Earth 74101, men ruled society. That reality, known as Machus, is where Machismo, the nuclear man, was born. These two worlds, Femizonia and Machus, eventually merged into one, forming Earth 7412. In this new reality, the conflict between men and women finally ended. However, Machismo continued his attempts to subjugate women, putting him into conflict with female heroes from Earth 616 like She-Hulk and Captain Marvel. Thundra, meanwhile, traveled to Earth 8009, a world where the Femizons and the Machans continued to battle one another. It was on this world that Thundra birthed a daughter named Lyra using a genetic sample harvested from the Incredible Hulk of Earth 616. Earth 3515, the reigning universe, is a once-possible future in which Thor seized control of the Earth. In this reality, Thor's son Magni also proved worthy of wielding Mjolnir. A timeline that extends much further into the future is reality 14412, the home of old King Thor at the end of time. In this timeline, King Thor had three granddaughters, the girls of Thunder, Frigg, Elisiv, and Atli. These three helped their grandfather restore life to the Earth, which had been dead for quite some time. It was also in this timeline that Wolverine was resurrected by the Phoenix Force to become its final host, Old Man Phoenix. In addition to these future timelines, there are also parallel dimensions that diverge during key moments, answering many what-if questions. In one, Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four at the start of his heroic career. In another, the Fantastic Four's powers were different, with Reed having mental powers as a disembodied brain, Ben growing wings which let him fly, Sue having stretching powers, and Johnny having armored metal skin. In this world, Reed Richards was nearly killed by Dr. Doom, but successfully took over his body shortly beforehand. In some worlds, others were bitten by a radioactive spider instead of Peter Parker. In one, Flash Thompson became Captain Spider. In another, Betty Brant became the amazing Spider-Girl. And in yet another, John Jameson became Spider Jameson, the super astronaut. In one universe, Jane Foster found the Hammer of Thor before Donald Blake. In another, Stan Lee, Saul Brodsky, Jack Kirby, and Flo Steinberg became the Fantastic Four. There's a timeline in which Rick Jones became the Hulk instead of Bruce Banner, one where World War II was fought in outer space, one where Peter Parker became Nova, the human rocket, one where Shang-Chi remained loyal to his criminal father, one where Doctor Strange was a disciple of Dormammu, one where Spider-Man continued his career in show business instead of becoming a vigilante, one where Susan Storm married a Namor, the Sub-Mariner, one where Doctor Doom became a superhero, one where Captain America was elected the President of the United States, one where Daredevil became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., one where Wolverine successfully killed the Hulk during their first encounter, one where Dazzler became a Herald of Galactus, one where Aunt May was shot by the burglar instead of Uncle Ben, one where Matt Murdock killed the Kingpin Wilson Fisk, one where the Venom symbiote possessed Thor and was killed by Black Bolt, one where Wolverine was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., 4 different ones where the Fantastic Four each had the same power, one where Charles Xavier became the Juggernaut, one where Spider-Man married Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, one where Wolverine became the Lord of the Vampires, one where the Submariner joined the Fantastic Four, one where Spider-Man kept his 6 arms, one where the Venom symbiote bonded to the Punisher, one where Rogue successfully stole the power of Thor, one where Peter Parker was adopted by J. Jonah Jameson, one where Tony Stark became the Sorcerer Supreme, one where Illyana Rasputin became the Sorcerer Supreme, one where Peter Parker became the Punisher, one where Thor was raised by frost giants, and of course there are many others. In addition to these future timelines and what-ifs, there are also Earths that diverged much earlier and thus differ greatly from the one we know. One such world is Earth 6311, in which the Dark Ages never happened, and mankind landed on the moon in the 9th century, which marked the beginning of a new calendar. Eventually, lunar colonists fought a war for independence that ended with the destruction of the moon. Despite the resulting damage to Earth, mankind clung to life, and their culture became a mix of science and medieval fantasy. When Nathaniel Richards, the father of Mr. Fantastic from Earth 616, traveled to this Earth 6311, he gave it the name Other Earth. This occurred in the year 1117 by Other Earth's calendar, over 1,000 years after the moon landing of the old calendar's 9th century. Richards provided the people of Other Earth with technology that helped them rebuild their world and became known as the Great Benefactor. Hundreds of years later, in Other Earth's 30th century, closer to the 40th by our calendar, a baby boy was named Nathaniel Richards, after his ancestor the Benefactor. This boy, the Nathaniel Richards of Earth 6311, has been known by many names and has diverged into many variants, including Ramatut, Iron Lad, the Scarlet Centurion, and Immortus. However, it's safe to say that his most well-known identity is that of Kang the Conqueror. Kang's exploits throughout the time stream have also created a number of divergent timelines, such as Earth 689, which he visited as the Scarlet Centurion. In that world, Kang convinced the original Avengers to defeat and imprison every other superpowered being on the planet, hero and villain alike. Looking elsewhere, Earth 721, otherwise known as Earth A, is a world where Reed Richards and Ben Grimm launched their experimental spacecraft without Johnny or Susan Storm. In this world, it was Reed who became the Thing, while Ben gained the powers of both Mr. Fantastic and the Human Torch. While there weren't any other superhumans on this world, the denizens of Earth A discovered a method of traveling to Earth 616, which they called Earth B, while copying the abilities of their interdimensional counterparts. During one of these trips, the Jennifer Walters of Earth A slept with the Juggernaut of Earth 616. This understandably led to confusion and frustration from the 616 She-Hulk until the truth behind the sordid affair was cleared up. One reality that is very different from our own is that of Earth 78411, in which dinosaurs never went extinct and shared the planet with primitive hominids known as the Dawn Men. This world is notable for being the home of Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur. Some universes are a bit crazier than others, such as Reality 80360, which is home to wacky characters like Teen Hulk and Obnoxio the Clown. Another cartoonish world is Earth 8311, otherwise known as Larval Earth, which is home to anthropomorphic animals such as Spider-Ham, Captain Americat, and Goose Rider. Earth 665 is a wacky version of the Marvel Universe in which Forbush Man resides. while Earth 21989 is the homeworld of Marvel babies. Earth 238, otherwise known as the Crooked World, is a universe in which Mad Jim Jaspers, a British politician who was secretly a reality-altering mutant, successfully orchestrated the outlawing and extermination of every other superhuman. The sole surviving superhero from this reality was Captain UK, who escaped to Earth 616 and has continued serving as a member of the multiversal Captain Britain Corps. Another alternate reality was first seen when the X-Man Kitty Pryde made up a fairy tale to tell young Illyana Rasputin. In the world of her story, Kitty was a swashbuckling pirate alongside her faithful companion Colossus. Of course, other members of the X-Men were cast in similarly fantastical roles. However, it was discovered that the world of Kitty's fairy tale was real when the Nightcrawler of Earth 616 found himself transported to Earth 5311. This world is also noteworthy for being home to the Bamfs, a race of diminutive elf-like creatures with similar powers to Nightcrawler. There are also universes with totally different rosters of superheroes, such as Earth 712, otherwise known as Earth S, home to the Squadron Supreme. Members of this group include Hyperion, Nighthawk, Power Princess, Dr. Spectrum, the Wizard, and many more, most of whom are meant to reflect aspects of the DC Universe's Justice League. Of course, Earth 712 isn't the only world with a version of the Squadron Supreme. Earth 31916, the Supreme Power Universe, has its own version of the team. Another world with its own assortment of superhumans is Earth 148611, in what is referred to as the New Universe. On this Earth, paranormal activities were mostly unheard of until 1986, when energies of the Star Brand enveloped the Earth, causing a blinding light which became known as the White Event. Following this, hundreds of people from around the globe began developing superhuman powers. It should be noted that Reality 148611 is purportedly not technically part of the same multiverse as the Marvel Universe, but still falls under a larger megaverse. The concept of a megaverse is not particularly well defined, and this seems simply to be a way to differentiate realities which lack the cosmic hierarchy present throughout the known multiverse. However, there do seem to be versions of this reality which exist within the multiverse because a very similar universe, Earth 15731, was once visited by a group of multiversal travelers known as the Exiles. And there are other similar realities, like Earth 555, where the White Event occurred in 2006 instead of 1986. Another world that is apparently in a different multiverse, but the same megaverse, is Earth 88194, the Shadowline Universe. While this Earth had no gods, mutants, or alien invaders, it was home to a race known as the Shadow Dwellers, whose evolution paralleled mankind. Able to pose as human, these shadows hid until the 20th century when they began to emerge, and while they were sometimes heroes, they were more often monsters. Despite reportedly not being within the same multiverse, one man was evidently able to travel between Earth 88194 and Earth 616, a cursed warrior from the 5th century named Shrek, later known as Terror. Pulling back from megaverses, let's take a look at more alternate Earths within the multiverse proper. One reality diverged into Earth 9105 when the biblical Moses was killed by the Egyptian pharaoh. On this world, history unfolded differently, resulting in the US being founded as the United States of Assyria. On Earth 1296, the Mutant X verse, Magneto met Charles Xavier earlier in his life and joined him in his quest for peaceful coexistence, leading to a better state of mutant-human relations overall. After being corrupted by the psychic entity known as the Shadow King, Xavier left command of the X-Men to Magneto. In this reality, Storm was transformed into a vampire by Dracula and became known as Bloodstorm. The Fantastic Four didn't have superpowers but instead used cybernetic armor. Cyclops was abducted by the Shi'ar instead of his father and founded the space pirates known as the Starjammers. And a six-armed Spider-Man successfully saved Gwen Stacy from the Green Goblin. Earth 9997, or Earth X, is a world where the heroic age ended and 10 years later the Inhuman King Black Bolt released the Terrigen mists into the atmosphere. Terrigen became an inseparable part of the air and people across the globe began mutating into Inhumans. To conceal his role in this, Black Bolt ambushed Uatu the Watcher and blinded him. Uatu subsequently recruited Aaron Stack, the Machine Man, to take his place. These mutations began shortly after a failed experiment by Reed Richards, and so Richards was blamed for the so-called Plague X. After the deaths of Susan, Johnny, and Doom, Reed donned his old enemy's armor and exiled himself to Castle Doom in Latveria. Sentinels were deployed to contain the mutations, but Magneto destroyed them and created a safe haven for mutants in the Savage Land. Norman Osborn ascended to the presidency and had Tony Stark construct iron versions of the Avengers who had died in battle. There's a lot more we could touch on with Earth X, but that would require a separate video. Speaking of worlds that we don't have time to talk about in great detail, Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe, initially appears to be similar to Earth 616, but is different in many ways. Many heroes and villains existed in both universes, but often with differences in their costume and personality. In some cases, these changes were subtle, while others were much more noticeable, leading to a very different timeline. For example, on this world, the group of heroes normally referred to as the Avengers were known as the Ultimates. This is also the universe where Miles Morales, the younger Spider-Man, originally came from before being transferred to Earth 616 in the wake of the Third Secret Wars. Additionally, in this universe, Reed Richards became a supervillain known as the Maker and has also appeared on Earth 616. Another world featuring alternate takes on familiar faces is Earth 2301, the Mangaverse. For example, the Peter Parker of this universe was a member of the ninja family known as the Spider Clan. Other universes feature Spider-Man from Japan, such as Sho Amano, aka Spider-Man J, from Earth 7041. Perhaps the most well-known Japanese Spider-Man is Takuya Yamashiro, a motocross racer turned tokusatsu hero from Earth 51778. Also known as the Emissary of Hell, Spider-Man is well known for his alien spaceship, the Marveler, which is capable of transforming into the giant robot Leo Pardon. And there are other universes with Spider-Men of different nationalities, such as Earth 50101, where Spider-Man was born in India. Earth 110, the Big Town universe, is one where Reed Richards and Tony Stark used their advanced technology to elevate society. There are numerous other differences in this reality, such as Wolverine, Storm, and Havoc being members of Magneto's Brotherhood. Earth 33, the Unstable Molecules universe, is one where the Fantastic Four were fictional characters who were loosely based on people the creators met in the 1950s. Speaking of unstable molecules, Earth 24883 is one where they were never invented. Earth 82802 is one where Peter Parker's Aunt May was married to Odin. Earth 3123 is one where Aunt May was bitten by a radioactive spider and became Spider-Man. Earth 82804 is one where Aunt May became Ant-Man. And on Earth 8417, Aunt May became a Herald of Galactus called Golden Oldie. In that world, she saved the Earth by satiating Galactus's hunger with golden sponge cakes that were similar to but legally distinct from Hostess Twinkies. However, in reality 82816, Galactus did indeed consume the Earth. Okay, some of these are intentionally silly, so let's get back to more noteworthy corners of the multiverse. On Earth 82828, Ghost Rider owned a fast food chain called Burger Hell. Okay, that's the last joke one. On Earth 15104, known as Here Comes Tomorrow, Jean Grey was killed and Cyclops left Beast in charge of the X-Men. However, Beast was subsequently possessed by the sentient bacteria known as Sublime, who forced mankind towards an apocalyptic future over the next 150 years. Reality 2149, the Marvel Zombies universe, is a world where the Earth was overrun by an extra-dimensional virus that transformed its hosts into flesh-eating ghouls. Unlike other zombies, these Marvel zombies retain their powers and intellect while fed, with the exception of certain power sets like regenerative abilities, but are constantly driven by a need to consume fresh meat. However, if one can resist the urge for long enough, a zombie's hunger will eventually fade, allowing their original personality to reassert control. One of the few survivors of the original outbreak was Magneto, who actually protected whatever living humans he could find. This reality was originally accessed by the Fantastic Four of the Ultimate Universe when Zombie Reed Richards attempted to trick Ultimate Reed and gain access to his dimension. However, it was previously visited by Ash Williams, a dimension-hopping adventurer from Earth 818793, a version of the Evil Dead universe. He departed from that world but soon landed on Earth 7085, which was overrun by werewolves. A group of Marvel zombies later succeeded in consuming Galactus, and upon gaining his cosmic powers spread the virus through their entire universe. This plague has also reached other universes such as Earth 12591, where World War II was won by Nazi zombies. This plague was discovered by Armor, an interdimensional defense agency on Earth 616, who dispatched robot operatives Joe Costa and Machine Man to obtain the DNA necessary to synthesize a vaccine. Machine Man subsequently partnered with Howard the Duck to combat outbreaks of the zombie virus across the multiverse. Meanwhile, Earth 666 is a world populated entirely by vampires, werewolves, and other supernatural creatures. This reality still has heroes of a sort and is defended by the Avengers of the Undead. Earth 70105, the Bullet Points universe, is a world where Steve Rogers was Iron Man, Peter Parker was the Hulk, Reed Richards was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Bruce Banner was Spider-Man. Earth 90214 is the Marvel Noir universe, a reality in which various Marvel heroes and villains appear in the 1920s and 30s. As the name suggests, this universe is essentially a mix of Marvel superheroes and film noir. Earth 8101 is a world in which intelligent simians were the dominant lifeforms on Earth, and thus is known as the Marvel Apes universe. This reality was at one point invaded by infected heroes from a version of the Marvel Zombies universe. Earth 97161 is a world in which the Inhumans teleporting dog Lockjaw assembled the Pet Avengers to gather the Infinity Gems and oppose Thanos. Earth 96433 is a world in which the superhero Civil War was fought in medieval times. This universe was first seen in the series Dark Reign Fantastic Four, in which Reed Richards created a bridge that allowed him to look into other realities and observe how the Civil War could have been avoided. On Earth 155, Hank Pym passed away shortly after the passing of the Superhuman Registration Act, and Stark wasn't involved in pushing the bill, but Richards was able to convince the superhero community of its merits. On Earth 3490, instead of Iron Man, there was an Iron Woman named Natasha Stark, who was in a relationship with Steve Rogers while a criminal Hank Pym was jailed. On Earth 1789002, a serum was invented that granted superhuman abilities to anyone who wanted them, allowing anyone to volunteer for the 50-state initiative and making the whole program more successful. Conversely, on Earth 26, Reed Richards invented a device that removed the superhuman abilities of everyone on Earth. While on Earth 1735, Captain America wasn't unfrozen until after the initiative was implemented, while Tony Stark hadn't recovered from his alcoholism. Not all Reeds are so successful, however, and in one reality, the Fantastic Four made their fateful spaceflight under a Nazi regime. On that world, Earth 98570, Hitler had won World War II and taken over the world. After gaining superpowers, the Reed Richards of that world seized control of the Nazi Party and even assembled the Infinity Gauntlet. However, in a final battle against the heroes of that world, Richards lost control of the infinite power and inadvertently destroyed the Earth. Meanwhile, Earth 3010 is the world of Rebel America, in which fascists within the US government imposed their will on the populace, leaving the country divided. This reality is notable for being the home of Wanda Wilson, colloquially known as Lady Deadpool. She was recruited into the Deadpool Corps by the Wade Wilson of Earth 616 and the disembodied head of Zombie Deadpool from Earth 2149, otherwise known as Headpool. Also in this group is Kidpool from Earth 10330 and Dogpool from Earth 103173. Other Deadpool variants include the Deadpool Kid from the Cowboy world of Earth 1108 and Major Wilson from the United States of North America in Earth 6466. After the apparent death of War Machine on Earth 616, America Chavez and Kate Bishop visited different universes where he was still alive, such as Earth 55, where he led the Avengers. There was a world where he became the mayor of Philadelphia, one where he ran Rhodes Labs International with Tony Stark working under him, and one where he married Carol Danvers. Earth 1365 is the home dimension of Yabat Uman-Taru, aka the Black Swan, who I mentioned in my video about the Illuminati. Speaking of which, on Earth 2319, the Illuminati was made up of Reed Richards, Doctor Doom, Emma Frost, Black Panther, Iron Man, Yellow Jacket, and both Betsy and Brian Braddock as two Captain Britons. While on Earth 23099, its membership included Richards, Iron Man, both T'Challa and Shuri as Black Panthers, Professor X, Captain Marvel, Magneto, and Black Bolt. Earth 4290001 was protected by a completely different group of heroes known as the Great Society. In certain realities across the multiverse, the Infinity Gems form in different shapes. On this world, instead of gems or stones that were placed into a gauntlet, there were 6 panes of forever glass that came together to form a wishing box. It should be noted that the heroes of the Great Society more closely resemble the Squadron Supreme than those of the Marvel Universe, but that's because both are similar to those of the DC Universe. And while their universe may exist in a distant cosmos, the heroes of Earth 616 did canonically meet a version of the Justice League when their two worlds crossed over. What followed was a battle to save reality in which both teams eventually joined forces. In addition, there is a universe known as Reality 7642 in which Marvel and DC heroes coexist on the same Earth. Not only that, but a version of the Transformers also exists in this universe. This is separate from the continuity of Marvel's original Transformers series, although Spider-Man does exist in that reality as well. That universe, designated Earth 91274, also includes the original G.I. Joe comics, in which Megatron was rebuilt into his Generation 2 tank form by Cobra. Of course, bringing up Transformers opens a whole other can of worms with different timelines and continuities. Another mechanical being encountered by the Transformers in one of these timelines was a freelance peacekeeping agent known as Death's Head. After being transported to Earth 120185, Death's Head was enlarged to 30 feet tall and attempted to claim a bounty on the Decepticon leader Galvatron. He subsequently encountered a time-traveling doctor who shrank him down to around 7 feet. The doctor then stranded the robotic bounty hunter, freelance peacekeeping agent, on Earth 5555, around the year 8162 AD. On that world, Earth had moved closer to the Sun, and the World Development Council created a brutal gladiatorial contest called The Game. For nearly 9 years, the undisputed champions of this game were a team known as the Dragon's Claws. Death's Head also visited other realities, like the world of Iron Man 2020, and was evidently noticed by the Time Variance Authority, who have on occasion made use of his services. There was also an incident in which a version of the Marvel Universe battled heroes from the DC Universe. At one point, these two universes merged together to form the Amalgam Universe. Heroes of this new merged reality included Super Soldier, a fusion of Captain America and Superman, Dark Claw, an amalgamation of Wolverine and Batman, Spider-Boy, a fusion of the Ben Reilly Spider-Man and Superboy, himself a clone of Superman, Amazon, an amalgamation of Storm and Wonder Woman, and Doctor Strange Fate, who of course appeared to be a combination of Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate, but had the secret identity of Charles Xavier. There was also a time when Gamora used the Infinity Stones to fold the universe in half, causing every soul in the Marvel Universe to merge with another. Iron Man and Thor fused to become the Iron Hammer, Doctor Strange and Captain America became the Soldier Supreme, Spider-Man and Moon Knight merged into the Arachnite, Scarlet Witch and the younger Wolverine, X-23, became Weapon Hex, and Black Panther and Ghost Rider fused into Ghost Panther. A way was found to restore the universe to its proper state, but the denizens of Warp World didn't consent to being unmade. And so it was done in a way where Reality 616 was restored, while at the same time Warp World continued to exist as a pocket universe within the Soul Stone. This pocket reality soon diverged into a multiverse unto itself, known as the Mergiverse. However, an imbalance in this new reality caused it to begin folding in on itself yet again. Ghost Panther and Iron Hammer fused to become Ghost Hammer, while the Arachnite and the Soldier Supreme became Spider Supreme. Then, upon folding one more time, Ghost Hammer and Spider Supreme became Hammer Supreme. With the combined abilities of Doctor Strange, Captain America, Moon Knight, Spider-Man, Black Panther, Ghost Rider, Iron Man, and Thor, the Hammer Supreme was able to see the flaw in reality and correct it, restoring Warp World to its proper state in which each being had 2 souls instead of 8. Of course, this wasn't the only time that Reality 616 was altered, creating a new universe. When Xavier's son Legion traveled back in time 20 years to assassinate Magneto, he inadvertently killed his own father, altering the future and preventing his own birth. This created a new timeline in which Magneto led the X-Men, and Apocalypse accelerated his plans for global conquest, resulting in the Age of Apocalypse. Earth 616 was inevitably restored, but the Age of Apocalypse timeline persisted as Reality 295. Some made their way to Earth 616, such as the villainous Sugar Man. A corrupted Hank McCoy also escaped and became known as Dark Beast. Perhaps most notably, Nate Gray, otherwise known as X-Man, was also from the Age of Apocalypse, created by Mr. Sinister from Cyclops and Jean Grey's genetic material. He later created a separate pocket reality of his own in which everyone was a mutant, the Age of X-Man. Another dark timeline which sort of did come to pass on Earth 616 was the Age of Ultron, in which the murderous machine successfully destroyed New York City and killed millions, including many of Earth's heroes. Wolverine attempted to undo this by going back in time and killing Hank Pym before he created Ultron in the first place. However, this altered the timeline much more than intended, resulting in the divergent Earth 26111. In that timeline, instead of Ultron, the Arthurian sorceress Morgan Le Fay invaded with an army of mystically enchanted Doombots. While the circumstances were different, New York still fell and the heroes still died. And so Wolverine went back in time again to stop himself from killing Pym and came up with a better solution. This time Pym hid a time-release failsafe deep within Ultron's programming before making himself forget what he learned about his own future. This allowed the timeline to remain unaltered until just before Ultron's invasion, when the Avengers were able to defeat the killer robot, preventing his assault and diverging the Age of Ultron into Reality 61112. Another temporal anomaly once caused the heroes of the Marvel Age to appear centuries earlier, circa 1602. This occurred because of interference from Earth 460, a future in which Kilgrave, the Purple Man, had taken over the world. Kilgrave exiled the Captain America of his own world through a temporal rift, causing him to land in the late 16th century of Earth 616 and warping reality in the process. The timeline was eventually restored to normal, and the altered world of 1602 was preserved in a pocket dimension as Earth 311 under the custody of Uatu the Watcher. When Morgan Le Fay transformed the Earth to resemble a medieval time period, the resulting world was designated Earth 398. And when the Scarlet Witch altered reality so that mutants were the dominant class, the world of M was known as Earth 58163. This is known as the House of M reality in reference to the royal family, the House of Magnus. In this world, Luke Cage led a human resistance movement that fought for equality. And in this altered reality, Wanda tried to give people the lives they wanted. For example, Peter Parker was married to Gwen Stacy and his Uncle Ben was still alive. However, Wolverine's desire was to remember his past, which caused him to still have memories of his previous life on Earth 616. This kicked off a series of events which led to the restoration of reality. Of course, due to the nature of the multiverse, a version of the world of M continued to exist independent of Earth 616. There are also a host of groups and organizations whose members span across the multiverse. For example, there's the Captain Britain Corps, a legion of heroes from across the Omniverse who are dedicated to protecting all of reality. They are noteworthy for being the first to refer to the Marvel Universe as Earth 616, and their system for numbering realities has become the standard. Not all groups are so heroic, and at one point there was a council consisting of thousands of Kang the Conquerors. The Council of Cross-Time Kangs included variants of Nathaniel Richards, the Prime Kang, as well as beings from other timelines who had stolen his technology. This group was once infiltrated by Ravonna Renslayer, the Terminatrix, while she was impersonating a variant of the space pirate Nebula. This council was eventually consumed by the temporal monster known as Alioth, but of course both Ravonna and the true Kang survived. Similarly, there is also a council of Reeds made up of varied variants of Reed Richards. These Reeds traveled the multiverse with an obsessive drive to solve everything. Part of this was capturing every version of Doctor Doom that they encountered and imprisoning them with a control collar that disabled their higher brain functions. Several of them possessed Infinity Gauntlets, but the gems don't actually function outside of their native reality. The Reed Richards of Earth 616 was considered for membership, but he ultimately chose to stay with his family. Another villainous group with members from across the multiverse is known as the Gatherers. They were led by a man called Proctor, a variant of Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, from Earth 374. On his world, Proctor was in love with the Eternal Circe, but she eventually left him. Obsessed, Proctor harassed Circe until he drove her mad, she destroyed their world, and he killed her. Finding an injured Watcher in the wreckage of his planet, Proctor learned of the multiverse and began his quest to eliminate alternate Circes in any universe he could find. As he did, he recruited and coerced other Avengers into following him, forming the Gatherers. However, the Gatherers would sometimes need to kill their interdimensional counterparts to survive in a new reality, a process they called gathering. Other members of this group included Philip Javert, the Swordsman of Earth 921, the Anti-Vision, an evil vision from Earth 932, a Golden Jocasta from Earth 943, and the T'Challa of Earth 355, known in his reality as the Coal Tiger. Some of these, such as Swordsman and Coal Tiger, were heroes in their own worlds and eventually turned against the Gatherers. Another team to travel the multiverse for more heroic purposes was the Exiles. Initially, they were recruited by a being called the Time Broker, who tasked them with repairing broken realities so they could return to their own. In reality, the Time Broker was merely a holographic projection made by an insectoid alien species who had accidentally caused the damage in the first place, thus being known as the Time Breakers. Their roster changed many times, but members included Blink, a teleporter from Earth 295, the Age of Apocalypse, Magnus, the son of Magneto and Rogue from Earth 27, Morph, a shape-shifting mutant from Earth 1081, Nocturne, the daughter of Nightcrawler and the Scarlet Witch from Earth 2182, a divergent version of Spider-Man 2099 from Earth 6375, and Power Princess, a member of the Squadron Supreme from Earth 712. Another multiversal gathering took place when spider-powered individuals were being hunted by the Inheritors, vampiric creatures who fed on animal totems. To defend themselves, Spider-Men, women, and others from across the multiverse gathered to form a spider army. Besides most of the Spider-Man already mentioned in this video, there was Gwen Stacy, the Spider-Woman of Earth 65. In her reality, she was the one bitten by a radioactive spider, while Peter Parker became the Lizard, resulting in his death. There was also Penny Parker from Earth 14512, who piloted the robotic SPDR suit with a radioactive spider, and Spider-Punk, the Hobby Brown of Earth 138, who rebelled against President Osborn's oppressive regime. In the original Spider-Verse event, Peter Parker of Earth 616 led the Spider Army to victory, while in the subsequent Spider-Geddon event, Miles Morales was at the forefront. In between these events, several spiders gathered together as the Web Warriors, led by Spider UK, who was a member of the Captain Britain Corps. Other spiders include Charlie, the rebellious Spider Kid from Earth 218, May Riley, the Lady Spider from the steampunk world of Earth 803, and Spiders Man, a cluster of spiders from Earth 11580 who consumed Peter Parker and absorbed his consciousness. In the same way that there is a Spider-Verse of various spider people, there's also a Venomverse, with different individuals wearing the Venom symbiote in different universes. On Earth 24398, the younger Wolverine, Laura Kinney, was Venom. On Earth 53912, the Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes, bonded with the symbiote. And on Earth 41715, it was the crazed mercenary Deadpool. During the events of Venomverse, many of the Venoms across the multiverse united to battle a group of parasites called the Poisons. These parasitic beings were capable of infecting organisms who were bonded with a symbiote, killing both the symbiote and its host while absorbing their knowledge, skills, and abilities. As such, the Poisons traveled the multiverse, forcibly bonding superhumans to captive symbiotes and then infecting them. And there are two more worlds I'd like to talk about before we finally end this video. The first is Battleworld, the planet created by Dr. Doom out of the last scraps of existence following the final incursion. This patchwork planet was made up of pieces of different Earths, divided into 41 domains and ruled by God Emperor Doom. Each domain was overseen by a Baron, and the whole planet was policed by a legion of Thors. And finally, perhaps the most peculiar world in the multiverse is Earth 1218. On this world, superhumans as we know them don't exist, and costumed crime fighters are things of fiction. In fact, the heroes and villains of the Marvel Universe exist only as characters in comic books, movies, and other various media. This world shares many historical events with Earth 616 prior to the Marvel Age, but without the intervention of costumed heroes. And while figures like Thor are spoken of in myth and legend, the existence of any gods, demons, or monsters is a contested topic. Well, as strange as that reality is, next week we're going to turn our focus back to Earth 616 as we continue to explore the history of the Marvel Universe. But that's all I've got for you this week. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more marvelous content. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know what Marvel hero or villain you want to hear about next, and as always you can check the description below for more places you can find me, including my Patreon page where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!